Hey, I want to welcome our viewers to our podcast this morning. And in the studio, all the way from California, is a friend of mine, Glenn Pearson. And so I'm going to have him introduce himself, and then we're going to get into a little conversation, a little East Coast, West Coast conversation.
Yeah.
And what we're going to talk about, if you build it, they might not come. An interesting contrast to what we usually see. So, Glenn, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
All right. Well, I grew up in New York. I've lived all over the country, keep getting chased out of places. And I met you probably, 15 years ago. We moved to Atlanta in 1995, spent 27 years here. And then because of grandkids and kids out in California, moved out there about a year and a half ago. But I spent 9 years in Christian ministry, and then spent the next 30 or so working as a senior hospital and healthcare executive in 3 different states. And then I did some consulting around helping largely technology companies, but really anybody who's trying to sell products or services to the healthcare world with their strategies, because every field is unique. It has its own protocols, its unspoken rules that somebody from the outside does not understand. So in my 19 years as executive vice president at Georgia Hospital Association, I had hundreds of vendors come to my office wanting to be endorsed by the association. And some of them did a great job, and some of them were flaming disasters. So, excuse me. From that, I started a list of mistakes that I saw vendors make in approaching healthcare. And I started with maybe 15 problems. And as I thought more and more, and then met some of my clients, and they contributed more mistakes to my list. Excuse me, I ended up with 84 problems that I saw vendors and entrepreneurs make in trying to approach the healthcare world. And one of the things I wrote a book about. It's called Thriving in the Healthcare Market, Strategies from an Industry Insider for Selling Your Product. And one of the more gratifying things I got was a review in an outside organization that reviews business-oriented books. And they gave it the highest rating they could. And they also made the comment, even though the focus is on healthcare, many of these things he talks about in the book apply to anybody in any industry. So that's kind of an overview of what, how I got where I am.
I mean, and I remember reading your blog, if you build it, they might not come. And it's like, wow, that is so appropriate for the mindset of, you have a good idea, and you think the world's going to just bang down and come and embrace you. So when you think about, like, our viewers are hearing this for the first time, when you first started discovering that these people were coming into healthcare and they thought they had the next, Apple phone, and it was like a disconnect, what was your kind of thought as you're working with them and trying to help them, transition into an industry and realize there's a disconnect?
Yeah, what I try to do is be encouraging to them. Although I will say this, for a while I was telling my clients in the consulting side, I'm the bad news guy, because like you said, everybody comes in thinking that they're got the greatest thing you can imagine. And, many of them did. I mean, they're great products, but there's so many ways that something can get derailed.
Right.
And I had one guy say to me, he said, you know what, this is hard enough, me doing this. I don't need you to be a downer too. So then I relabeled myself the reality guy. I said, I'm your friend. You're better off hearing it from me because I'm trying to help you than getting in front of a room with, 15 or 20 people on some kind of committee evaluating what you have and getting torpedoed or ambushed by one of these things that, had you known in advance, you could have minimized the collateral damage. So it was a combination. What I was trying to do is see, I always try to see what they had that was good and try to reinforce and say, okay, this is what you need to stress. This is your strong selling point. And you also need to be aware of these other things that you need to figure out how to minimize people not taking you seriously because of these other factors.
You said it yeah, no, I agree. I understand to the degree that I've known you and we've talked about these subjects. When you started keep seeing all these mistakes or ways that would derail people,
Mm-hmm.
if we're talking to our viewers and we wanted to break it down into the top three,
Oh boy.
I mean, I know it's hard because
Yeah.
our brain sees so much.
Yeah.
But what would you let's bring it back to those. And you know what? You didn't know I was going to ask it, so I mean, it's not
Yeah,
like
my memory is not there.
yeah, I know, because
84 problems.
you're out there playing with grandkids and having a good old time and
Yeah.
retired. And it's like
Yeah.
if you're not in it every day,
Right.
it's a little different than if you are in it every day.
Sure.
So, but let's just have some fun.
Sure.
Let's start breaking in your mind down to three of the
Okay.
84. Let's start talking
Okay.
a little bit more on those.
I think, and I'll talk about the ones that are generic to any industry, because obviously I doubt that too many of you might have some that are selling at hospitals, but probably not. I would say one of the biggest problems that I saw vendors make is not realizing the complexity of the organization they were going into and the I guess political overtones, if you will, of what they had to offer. Now, this is if somebody has a very simple, straightforward product like supplying janitorial supplies to a school system or something. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. But a lot of what we're dealing with in healthcare has multiple aspects. You have different departments involved, and you have these little kingdoms that people build up, and probably most organizations have some degree of that.
I think so.
And one of the things that I saw over and over again is that somebody comes in with a great product that really helps a particular job function do their job better, which is wonderful. But sometimes the spillover effect is that it detracts from somebody else's department, or it raises the person that I'm talking to, raise their status in the organization if they can become a hero to say, look at all this money I saved or made it more efficient. And unfortunately, human nature is such that if someone's on the wrong side of that, if they're the one that is going to be adversely hurt, they can find about 18 reasons why your product shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be true in many organizations. So that's a real big one.
So, understanding the complexity of all the people that are going to be accepting it and moving it through, because you always hear that thing, people have to see it 7 times. But it seems like when I'm hearing it, is there's not only that, but there's different departments one department may not be in that meeting, but yet it gets represented to that department. And then they're going, no way can we bring this in, because it's going to disrupt our whole culture of how we do things. So if you're like on the other end of a vendor, what are you saying? What would be your strategy to be able to touch the different departments and the different people that are the decision makers? Sure. How would you go about it?
That's a really good question. That's really key in figuring this out. If you're fortunate, you might, let's put it this way, if whoever the primary user of that product is, if they really like it, then you can bring them into the process in a sense and ask them. You got to be careful because they work for the company. They're not, they don't want to divulge. It's not appropriate to ask for too much information.
Right.
But ask them, okay, I'm glad you like this product. What barriers do you see in having it adopted, and who is likely to really like this? And is there anybody who you think might be in opposition? And how do we approach those people? I mean, do you know them well enough that you could tell me what their objections are likely to be? And then is there any way that maybe you and I can go to them in a very non-salesy way, just saying, listen, this has some spillover to your department. Can I get your reactions to this? And how can this help your department or your job function?
I really like that. I mean, I think the asking of questions and
Yeah.
because I think it's the complexity of a sale makes it so important to be able to weave through the different people that have the influence over those particular departments. And that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, because you have to ask the questions. It's not like they're going to say, well, Glenn, here's the map to get through to our organization. Just follow this map and you'll get there. So I love that, asking the questions and really putting them in the position to really give you an idea of where it has to go.
Yeah, you're drawing them in as an ally. You know, if they really want it. Now, if they're
totally.
lukewarm,
I totally agree.
You know, that's not going to work.
No, because people are busy.
Right.
It's not their job to buy your product. It's your job to educate them on how it's going to improve. And it has to go through all the different departments or different decision makers.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. I mean, I think that is in any industry.
Good. Well, I thought of a second one. You want to?
I want to move. This one for my next question.
All right.
Good.
This one I've seen a lot where the vendor or the producer, whatever, you know, the guy coming in, obviously hopefully is excited about their product, but they often inundate the target, if you will, or the potential buyer with way too much information, and they fail to differentiate why their product is any different than anyone else. So in other words, they end up with a list of 19 features, you know, like in the software world, they say, well, we're, you know, cloud-based and we're, you know, geez, it's been a while since I've been dealing with software, but you know,
they give all these different things,
which everyone else has.
Yeah.
You know,
and you're just like overwhelmed by, well, you're not a golfer, but if I can just jump in for our viewers, I'll ask a question when I'm playing with a golfer, and then 10 minutes later, I have no idea what they do because it's so complex. My brain can't get around it. And we talked right before we went on the air, how much information is coming at us. You said 10,000 messages. I said 60,000. Let's split it in the middle. It's a lot. You know, so making it simple. So go ahead.
Yeah. And the other part of that is that so much of what some of these guys present is common to every other competitor. So it's like, well, okay, I'm glad you're cloud delivered. Well, so's your competition. If you're not cloud delivered, I'm not even going to consider you. So what I always told my clients to do is find the 2 or 3 things that are genuinely different about your product. You know, headline those. And then if you want to have a list and, you know, the other features, oh, and by the way, here are the other 17 things we do. Well, yeah, that's nice to know. But what I really care about, get through the clutter, tell me why you're better, and you better be honest, you know. I guess this is kind of 2.5, you know, 2.5 problem. If you go in there and you misrepresent or overstate, you know, I used to ask vendors who came into my office at Georgia Hospital Association, is there anybody else who does what you do? And, you know, I mean, I'd have people everywhere from, you know, janitorial supplies to software stuff to, you know, organizational, I mean, just anything and everything. Well, I don't know everything about that stuff.
Sure.
So I'd ask them because you know, if I know that there are 7 companies that offer it, it's like, okay, well, your threshold's a little higher to get my interest because how do I know you're the best?
Yeah.
And I had people say to me, oh, no, we're the only one to have this, or, you know, no one else does it like we do. And then I poke around a little bit. You know, there's something called the internet that you can actually Google stuff and find out that that's not quite true. So why would I want to do business with you if you're misrepresenting to me? You know, I'm supposed to be helping you, and you're asking me to put my reputation on the line to some extent to endorse you. And I'm not sure I can trust you. So I'm not interested. So, you know, I don't know if this is 2.5 or 3, but
no,
you know,
I
honesty
think it
and
really,
integrity or, you know, and I've had some vendors come in and say, you know what, I could try to dazzle you and tell you stuff that's not true, but that's not the case. And I respect that. And then if they come back, you know, subsequently with something different, it's like, okay, I trust this person. You know, to me, integrity is number one.
Absolutely.
And my integrity matters. The integrity of the people I work with matters. So do not do anything to make the sale, because people are going to find out later on
Mhm.
that you weren't exactly truthful. And that's
Right.
not a good way to develop an ongoing relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you at some point that a person's reputation and integrity in business
Yeah.
is everything.
Yep.
So when you think of that, just in your career, how did that shape your belief system? I mean, you shared a little bit, but
Yeah.
let's go a little deeper, because I think today it's so easy,
Yeah.
whether it's AI or the internet, to get accurate information.
Mm-hmm.
And if it contradicts a person's communication with you,
Right.
it's like you're not aligned with what you said, which means the integrity of your conversation is jeopardized. So what did it mean to you in your career, your reputation? In business?
As an individual, as a Christian, I try to represent Jesus well. I try to act, and obviously there are times that I do better than others, hopefully inadvertently. But I want people to trust me because I'm telling them the truth. And you obviously want to present your whatever it is you're doing in a positive way, but there's definitely a line that I'm not going to cross. But I guess an aspect of that is that most industries, and healthcare is certainly this way. Healthcare is local. Every hospital is an entity of its own. But you know what? People talk to each other.
Yep.
And Georgia Hospital Association, we represented 146 hospitals around the state. We'd have meetings. The CFOs would get together for different meetings, and the IT people and the presidents, all that. And then there are also national relationships that everybody has. So even though, there are like 5,000 hospitals in the country, people talk to each other. And if there is a group of us that would get together a couple of times a year to talk about, well, what companies are you guys finding that are good to work with?
Oh, really?
If I find a good one, it's like, okay, guys, look at these guys that we came across. They do a great job. It took a little while to get started, but once we kind of helped them shape their strategy, all that stuff. The other associations are going to say, wow, can I get their contact number? Or conversely, you'll be talking about a particular product area and they say, has anybody had experience with, a software program that tracks contracts that are coming up for renewal? Oh yeah, we had this company come into us, and let me tell you what they did. So, the personal integrity is important, but also reputationally, you treat somebody wrong and there's a high probability. In fact, I read a book years ago by a car salesman, of all people. It was called How to Sell Anything to Anybody. And one of the points he made is that everybody has, I don't know how he came up with this number, but he said everybody has enough contacts that they have about 250 people in a relationship where they can present good information or bad information. So when you're working one person over, it's probably more like 250 people. So just don't do that. And conversely, if you treat somebody right, I love telling people when I find a great restaurant or I've had a terrific service experience at a company, I say, man, if you ever need, this bike shop is great. They went out of their way. They did all this stuff for me, and they charged me $5 to do something. It took them 25 minutes to do. I can't believe that. So think in those terms, like, what can I do? Again, reputation.
Yeah.
What can I do to, first of all, help these people? And well, let me give you another one here. One, I had people come into my office trying to sell me, pardon my language, the crap they had.
Yeah.
They found out that whatever they had didn't fit my need, but then they try to keep pushing it. It's like, okay, we've already established that this is not a good match, and I'm not just criticizing you as a person. It's not going to work. Let me give you a story about that. I was in the market for a car probably 15 years ago, and I was looking for a midsize SUV, and I won't mention the dealership or the brand,
right?
But I went to the dealership and looked at this model that I thought, it had some possibilities. So I sat in it. It's like, okay, this is not working. It was chintzy looking. No, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So then the salesman said, well, can I interest you in this 4-door sedan? And it's like, did you not hear what I said? I'm looking for a midsize SUV, not a 4-door sedan.
What
So
he
why would
wanted
I
to
even,
sell
right,
instead of what you wanted.
exactly. He knew that he wasn't going to sell me the SUV. And you think because I'm coming in wanting this, that just by you suggesting a totally different vehicle,
Yeah.
which by the way was butt ugly too, you know,
Yeah.
just forget it, you know. So don't do that. I mean, if you find out that it's not going to work, preserve your dignity, preserve your reputation. And I'm not saying you don't try to look for cross-sell opportunities, but don't cross a line showing that you're not really interested in meeting their needs. You're interested in selling them something, whether they need it or not.
Yeah, I love that story about, the interest level of the person who thinks of himself. I can sell a car to this guy,
Right.
so I'm going to try and close him on something he had no interest in. I had a conversation with a gentleman a week ago, and I want you just to comment on it. And we talked about the truth will set you free.
Mm-hmm.
So that in mind, but he related it to business in that if you're not aligned with the truth, it kind of like eats away at you. You say, hey, Glenn, I'll call you back 3:00 tomorrow. Crickets, nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, another example comes up. Hey, Glenn, we'll get together for lunch. Nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, and it doesn't hurt you as much as the person communicating something that is not true.
Right.
I mean, do what you say and be truthful.
Yeah.
And so he kind of he was going like, man, in business, I see people that don't align themselves with the truth.
Yeah.
And it's hurting them because that heart gets affected. Like if your word is not your honor.
Right. It's reputation.
Yeah, exactly. Just what you said. And it starts with little things like, hey, you're coming to town. Hey, Pete, I'll call you tomorrow at 5:00. And you call me, I'm going, dang. And it just reinforces everything that we have been a part of, because when you tell me you're going to do something, you do it.
Right.
And it's like, oh, it's just a white lie. No, there's a lie's a lie. It doesn't matter if it's a little one or a big one.
Well, and a variation on that is what you're really saying is expectation management.
Mm-hmm.
And we had an experience one time with somebody doing some work on our house, lengthy process, all that.
Mm-hmm.
He would repeatedly say, oh, we'll get to this Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Monday comes and goes.
Nothing.
Doesn't come, doesn't call. It's like, okay, obviously something came up that he couldn't do that. I'm disappointed. I wish you were there, but you know what? Tell me you're not going to be there. It's a little bit of bad news. Yeah, I'm sorry. Too bad you can't come. But if I'm hanging around all day waiting for this guy to come, how positive am I going to be about?
That's the last referral he'll ever get from you, because that, I like how you said the expectation. And I think I've had numerous conversations in the last couple of months with some friends, because I'm curious about the subject, because people think that little expectation doesn't mean much. Hey, he's going to know I was busy.
Right.
No, he isn't.
Right.
He's waiting. You're
rude.
Waiting.
It's rude.
Yeah, exactly. And so that reputation of that contractor, like you said, 250 people, Mm-hmm. So I call you and I ask for a referral from that type of contractor. The last thing you're going to do is recommend that person because of just what you said.
Well, the 250 numbers, even actually, there's another wrinkle on that too, because some of us have, one of our indoor sports is loving to complain about bad experiences we've had. I mean, you're more likely to share a funny story or not positive story than you are. I don't know, maybe that's a reflection on me that I'm a negative person. I don't, but the point is, sometimes when you're in a conversation, say, oh, I got to tell you what happened today. I got so ticked off because of that. I mean, it's more likely you're going to do that than to say,
totally.
I got to tell you,
oh yeah,
I had the best experience, so
yes,
it's not necessarily 250 bad or 250 good. It may be 250 bad and 15 good, you know.
Well, we always remember, in a sense, the negative things that happen against us. So I don't know if it's a negative, positive mindset. It's just that you were disappointed with a business. You're more apt to put a review up with that negative thing within to say, because your expectations are that they're going to serve you at a certain level. So you're not surprised when you get good service, but you're surprised when you get terrible service. So you're going to communicate that. So I think, well, I know from the Google world, I would always talk with my restaurants is more people are going to give you negative reviews than positive. So you got to work so hard for the positive ones, because maybe it's 5-1, whatever the number is. So if you don't work extra hard with your reputation and your service level and exceeding expectations, then all of a sudden you're going to find out, man, it's going to be a true picture of what you're delivering in value to the customer. And it's not what you want. So I want to be respectful of your time, because I know you're in for just a few days. And why don't you tell our people, and I'll put it, how can people get a hold of you?
All right. I have a big mouth and I love talking to people. So, I'm always happy to hear from folks. My email address is there, GlennPearson 1.0 Gmail. My cell, I still have my Atlanta area code is 770-861-6941. Let me mention my book again, because as I said, it does have spillover, I think, to other industries. It's called Thriving in the Healthcare Market, Strategies from an Industry Insider for Selling Your Product. And it's available at Amazon. The e-version is a lot more affordable than the hard copy, but you can look for it out there. So,
well, we always like to touch and feel. So
I'm old school when it comes to books.
Me too. I actually now, a person talked about the way you learn, and if you're an auditory person, combining different learning styles. So I'll order Audible and the book, and I'll do both of them at the same time to kind of challenge the thinking, because it's what we absorb and take in, not necessarily all the words we read. So tell our viewers, what would be I love the topic. What would be the one thing that you would want them to take home from our time on the podcast?
Put yourself in the position of the person you're trying to relate to. Try to understand what's important to them and act with the integrity. It's like Jesus said, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. I mean, how do you respond? What makes you want to work with somebody?
Right.
I mean, it's basic as you get. Why would I want to work with somebody who doesn't really care about? I'm not saying you have to become these guys' best friends. I'm just saying, in your interaction in the appropriate business context, try to understand what their needs are and not manipulate them or back them in their corner, do the hard sell, that type of thing. Because I personally respond extremely poorly to that. If I send somebody who's trying to push something on me, even if I'm interested, I resent that, and it's counterproductive. So, just act with integrity and, be positive, be bold. I'm not saying you have to become a wallflower or a wimp or apologize for what you have, but just be, I could think of some words that I probably shouldn't use. Don't be certain ways, but just be the right way, and act with integrity. So.
No, that's so wise. That's why we say mastermind with thinkers. I consider you a thinker when it comes to the topics that you have addressed out there with your books that you've written and the blog posts and just the information that you challenge us to think, because I love people that change a perspective with a belief system that I never, I was like, whoa, I never thought of it that way.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned, thank you for mentioning my blog post. And if it's appropriate, I didn't invite anybody to sign up. I send out faith-based posts every 3 weeks, and they're brief, 600-700 words. And I try to be provocative. I try not to cover the same ground. What makes me feel good is I have several people that regularly respond. They say, every time I read any of your things, it gives me something to think about I hadn't really
Yes.
considered before.
Totally.
That's what I try to do. I try to pick angles on things and not just crazy. I'm not trying to be weird just to be different, but I'm trying to say, okay, I know hundreds of people have talked about this. Let me give you a little bit different way to think about this that maybe is new to you. So you can contact me at my email and I'll be happy to add you to my list.
And I tell you what we'll do, we'll put it in the show notes to your blog so that people can, because
be great.
I only have a handful of newsletters that I read. And yours is one of them because of that thinking.
Yeah.
And I always like people that challenge my thinking and belief system. So I can kind of go, maybe I didn't think of that way, because I think it's so important today. We get so much information, people that'll challenge you to think. So I wanted to thank you, Glenn, for being a guest.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely.
I've been trying to get this set up for a while.
Yes. And we through technology, we're going to be able to bring the California and the Georgia together more often. So if you know of anybody that you think would enjoy this podcast, share it with them. Let them know about it. And certainly signing up for Glenn's blog will give you a sense of his thinking and how he presents an idea that you might not have never heard. And you're able to kind of think differently about a subject, because today I think we're so divided in our thinking. It's like, you believe this, I believe this, and there's no middle ground. And that's unfortunate, because we support what we believe. And if you believe a certain way, you're looking for information that support it instead of challenging you to think. Think about your perspective. I never thought about that. And then allowing your system to grow and being open-minded. So thanks. We'll have you back. I love to have you back. And we don't have to have you in Georgia to do it.
That's
all right.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
you bet.
Appreciate
I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks.